I noticed it on a Tuesday night, around 11, when the house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming from across the hall. I walked into our bedroom, and she flinched. Not a big flinch. Not the kind you'd notice if you weren't paying attention. But her thumb moved fast across the screen, and the phone went face down on the comforter, and she looked up at me with a smile that arrived about half a second too late. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, holding a glass of water, feeling something cold settle into my chest like a stone dropping into a lake. We'd been married 9 years. 9 years of ordinary, mostly good life. 2 kids, a boy and a girl, both under 7. A house with a mortgage we could barely afford but loved anyway because of the backyard and the big kitchen window that let morning light pour across the counter. We met in college, one of those stories people call boring, because nothing dramatic happened. We just liked each other. We kept liking each other. We got married in her parents' backyard with 60 people and a playlist she spent 3 weeks building. For a long time, I thought we were the kind of couple that would make it. Not because we were perfect, but because we actually talked to each other. Or at least I thought we did. The last year had been hard. I won't pretend otherwise. I'd taken a new position at work that doubled my commute and cut my evenings short. She'd gone back to work part-time after staying home with the kids for 4 years. We were both tired in a way that felt permanent, like exhaustion had moved into our bones and unpacked its bags. Date nights disappeared. Conversations shrank down to logistics. Who's picking up the kids? Did you pay the electric bill? There's leftover pasta in the fridge. We weren't fighting. That was the thing people don't understand. We weren't fighting at all. We were just quiet. And I told myself quiet was fine. Quiet meant stable. Quiet meant we were getting through it. But that night, standing in the doorway watching her flip that phone over, I realized quiet might mean something else entirely that I didn't ask about the phone. I climbed into bed, turned off my lamp, and stared at the ceiling while she went into the bathroom. I heard the faucet run. I heard the door close softly. And then I heard the faint tap of her thumbs on glass, typing behind that door, and my stomach turned. The next few days I watched. I hate admitting that. I watched like a stranger in my own house, cataloging things I'd never paid attention to before. She started charging her phone in the kitchen instead of on her nightstand. She laughed at something on the screen once while I was making the kids' lunches, and when I asked what was funny, she said just a meme, without showing me. She never used to do that. She used to shove the phone in my face for every stupid video and meme she found. Now the screen was a wall point one night after the kids were asleep. She said she was going to take a walk. It was 9:30 on a Thursday. She'd never once taken a walk at 9:30 on a Thursday. I watched her from the upstairs window. She walked to the end of the driveway, leaned against the car, and called someone. She talked for 20 minutes. I could see her breath in the cold air. I could see the way she moved her free hand while she spoke, the way she paced, the way she laughed once, so suddenly it cut through the quiet of the street. She looked alive. That was the part that hurt most. She looked more alive in that driveway, talking to whoever that was, than she'd looked in our kitchen in months. I started checking small things. The water bill, the credit card statement, looking for something I couldn't name. I found a charge at a restaurant downtown I'd never heard of. Lunch, a Wednesday, $42. She hadn't mentioned going out. I didn't bring it up. I just wrote the date on a piece of paper and folded it into my wallet like evidence I wasn't sleeping well. I'd lie there at 2 in the morning running scenarios in my head, building a case, tearing it down, building it again. Some nights I'd convince myself I was being paranoid, that I was turning normal behavior into proof of something terrible because I was stressed and insecure. Other nights I'd feel it so clearly it made my teeth ache. Something was happening. Something she wasn't telling me. And every day she didn't tell me, the distance between us grew wider, and I could feel myself becoming someone I didn't recognize. Suspicious. Resentful. Quietly furious. The kids noticed. My daughter asked me one morning why I looked sad. I told her I was just tired. She put her hand on my cheek and said, "You should take a nap, Daddy." And I almost broke right there at the breakfast table that I thought about going through her phone. I knew her passcode. She'd never changed it. I could have done it any night while she was in the shower. I picked it up once, held it in my hand, felt its weight, and put it back down. Because I knew that if I looked and found something, everything would shatter. And if I looked and found nothing, I'd still be the kind of man who searches his wife's phone at midnight. Either way, I lost point 2 weeks after that first night. I came home early. The kids were at her mother's. The house was empty except for her. I found her in the living room, sitting on the couch with her legs tucked under her, phone in both hands, typing fast. She didn't hear me come in through the garage. I stood in the hallway for maybe 5 seconds, watching. She was smiling. Not at me. Not because of me. At something on that screen, then she looked up, and the smile disappeared. She pulled the phone to her chest like she was shielding it, like I was a threat, and something in me just went still. Not angry, not sad, just completely, terribly still. I walked into the living room. I sat down on the chair across from her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her of anything. I just looked at her and I said one thing. I'd rather you tell me the truth right now than let me keep guessing. Because what I'm imagining is probably worse than whatever it is. Her face changed. Not guilt, exactly. Something closer to relief, mixed with fear, mixed with something I couldn't read. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at the phone in her hands. Then she set it on the cushion between us, screen up, like an offering. It's not what you think, she said. She told me she'd been talking to someone. A man she'd reconnected with online, an old friend from before we met. She said it started as catching up. Innocent. But it had become the thing she looked forward to most in her day. She said she hadn't done anything physical, hadn't met him, hadn't crossed that line. But she admitted something that hit me harder than any confession of that nature could have. She said talking to him made her feel like herself again. Like the version of her that existed before the mortgage and the school lunches and the exhaustion. She said she knew it was wrong. She said she'd been trying to stop. She said she was scared to tell me because she didn't want to lose me, but she was also scared because she didn't want to stop. That I sat there and absorbed it. Every word landed like a small, precise cut. Not because she'd been talking to someone, but because she'd found something outside of us that I hadn't even known she was missing. I'd been right there, in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, and I hadn't seen her disappearing. The days after that conversation were the hardest of my marriage. We didn't yell. We didn't throw things. We sat at the kitchen table after the kids were in bed and talked in low voices like we were afraid of waking something worse than the children. She showed me the messages. I read some of them. They weren't explicit, but they were intimate in a way that made my hands shake. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Conversations about dreams and fears and memories. The kind of honesty she used to give me. She cut contact with him that week, blocked the number, deleted the app. She did it in front of me, which I think was supposed to make me feel better. It didn't. Because the problem was never really the phone or the other man. The problem was that we'd been drowning in the same house and neither of us had said a word about it. We started counseling. I didn't want to go. I thought it meant we'd failed. But I went because the alternative was watching the whole thing collapse while my kids played in the next room. It was slow, painful, unglamorous work. Some sessions I left feeling worse than when I walked in. Some sessions she cried so hard she couldn't finish a sentence. But we kept going. Week after week, sitting on that gray couch in a small office that smelled like coffee and carpet cleaner. It's been 14 months now. I won't say we're fixed, because I don't think that's how it works. We're different. The trust isn't what it was. Some nights I still feel that cold stone in my chest when she picks up her phone, and I have to remind myself to breathe, to stay present, to choose this marriage again in that moment. She knows that. She doesn't hide the screen anymore. She leaves her phone on the counter, face up, like a quiet promise. And I try not to look, because trust rebuilt from surveillance isn't trust at all. What I learned is that the most dangerous distance in a marriage isn't miles. It's silence. It's two people who love each other deciding, separately, that they're fine. That they'll get through it. That they don't need to say the hard thing out loud. We nearly lost everything. Not because of some dramatic betrayal, but because we stopped reaching for each other in the dark. Did I still think about that night sometimes? The flinch. The phone flipping over. The smile that came half a second too late. And I wonder how many people are lying next to someone right now, noticing something small, saying nothing, and hoping the silence doesn't mean what they think it means.